Okay guys, we're going to show you how to set up the battery communication between the EG4 batteries, the new EG4 LL version, so known as Gyll, and the integrated communications that we have created for the Growatt inverters we have here on the bench. And so, important thing to understand about battery communication architecture. One FAQ we always get is, what if I already had the old battery? You can have it in the same battery bank, and as a matter of fact, just by dint of how voltage works, they will synchronize very, very closely with the batteries, and the BMS's, the way the architecture works, as the original Gyll version battery fills up, it'll shut itself off and stop accepting charge, and that would be reflected in these other batteries filling up very quickly and telling the inverter we're full. So it's not absolutely synchronous, but it's very close. And so with the new version, we have 4 Ethernet ports. That's one of the things that stands out just looking at this right in front. We had 2 Ethernet ports before, we now have 4. 2 of the 4 Ethernet ports are your daisy chain battery communications ports. This is for basically battery talk to battery, right? So what I've got here, I've got 2 of the new batteries, with the LCD screens, which is kind of nice, and we are communicating between one to the other. And then the other 2 ports are for communication to different kinds of inverter communications. Now, of course, we're focusing on the 5000 ES inverter communications at this point. So we are using the RS485 communication standard. That tends to work the best, we found, with the 5000 ES type inverters. And so that's what we're going to standardize on. There's a way to do it with CAN bus. We're not going to show that way. Good luck. Anyways, to get to where we're at right here, we have ID switches, and obviously there's 16 communications potentials with these 4 dip switches here, up or down. The most important setting is the setting on the battery that you go to your inverters with. So you're only heading to the inverter with 1 cable. All the other batteries are being connected to the inverter by extension through the battery COM ports. They're all synchronizing. The one that heads to the inverter is now your assigned master. Now, to assign it as master, which is that you have to do this, you must set the switch to address 1. That's 3 switches down, 1 up. That is the master switch. Now, it's important to realize as well, as you probably would guess anyway with address switching, you can't have the same address on other batteries in the same chain. So if you have, there's one address 1, otherwise you're going to create a conflict. So set this to address 1, set your other batteries to any other address you want. They don't necessarily have to be sequential, they just can't be overlapping. So we come out of this battery's RS45 communication port, and we're going to head into the RS45 8-port hub. This is a $29 device that we carry, and this is for communicating with more than one inverter. Now, this hub is technically unnecessary if you just want to communicate with one inverter, but we're trying to show at this point, just if you have one inverter, just assume you're going to plug from your battery into your inverter. For this setup, we have 2 inverters, so we can show the more complicated route. 2 inverters talking to 1 battery. You plug the 1 battery into the hub, and then you come out of the hub with other cables, and you plug those into the RS485 port. Now, there's 2 ports on the bottom of the 5000 ES, a CAN and an RS485. Obviously, use the RS485 if you're basing this on RS45 communications. So RS45 to hub, RS45 to hub, and then of course the hub back to your RS45 port. Pretty common networking, honestly. So now what we've got to do is go into our inverter and set the battery communication protocol. This is set on program 5 of the 5000 ES. So if we peg down through here, I held down on my enter button to hit my settings. When we go to program 5, I've already changed this. It's originally would look like this, AGM. When you head to lithium, and this is a 2-screen setup, you set it to lithium, and then your protocol screen comes up. 36 is the protocol you want, and then LO1 is the protocol you want. Now by default it says LOO. We're shooting for LO1. Once you're done with this, escape and head back. And now you notice on the screen here, it says LI. And it has these bars. Now the cool part here is that these bars represent the percentage on the battery because it's talking. So these batteries are about 75% charged. And if it's not quite 100%. Now the way that this thing referees, it's not showing all four because it doesn't have 100%. And if you look at the screen here on these batteries, and the state of charge that I'm reading here is 91%. Right there. So state of charge 91%. So that's being told to the inverter, and the inverter, it doesn't call it 4 bars until it's 100% charged. Anything between 4 to 3, it rounds down. The batteries tend to round up. So you might notice, why is this showing 3 lights and my battery has 4 lights? Well, it's just a matter of how it handles the data. And the actual inverter monitoring app will show precise percentages the entire time, which is exciting because if you'll be able to have basically amp hour by amp hour what your battery's doing on your Wi-Fi portal using the Growatt Wi-Fi stick. So I'm going to go ahead, and we've done that same situation to this inverter, and we followed the standard paralleling process for a 2 inverter stack. Now this is drawn out in the manual. It's incredibly easy to follow what's going on. These 2 current sharing cables are involved, and then the 2 communications cables are involved. I'm going to go ahead and turn the inverters on. They'll beep. And that's an immediate start on the inverters. And really that's it, guys. That's all you need to do to communicate with the inverter to the batteries. You're going to get a much more synchronous setup with that. And that's really it. That's all we're shooting for. Achieving with the communications is actually pretty straightforward if you just keep those few things in mind.